The streets are buzzing and the internet is going absolutely wild. Lil Durk just dropped bombshell revelations that no one inside OTF or outside of it expected. Allegedly, secrets have been buried for years, and now they're finally coming to light. Social media is exploding as fans scramble to make sense of what Durk revealed: betrayals, double crosses, and alliances that have shifted behind closed doors. People are calling it the expose of the decade, and every clip, post, and tweet seems to add another layer of drama. Sources claim that Lil Durk didn't hold back. From longtime associates who quietly worked against the crew to shocking truths about loyalty tested at the highest levels. It's giving real inside OTF energy. Rumors suggest that some members were secretly feeding information to rivals, while others were playing both sides. And Durk has now publicly exposed who could and couldn't be trusted. Fans are reacting in real time. TikTok clips, Twitter threads, and Instagram stories are dissecting every detail of Durk's revelations. Some are cheering him for finally standing up, while others are shocked at the sheer audacity of the betrayals exposed. Allegedly, even rival crews are watching closely, trying to read between the lines and anticipate the next moves. The tension, palpable. The stakes, higher than ever. What really makes this story explosive is that it's not just about music or street credibility, it's about loyalty, survival, and power within one of the biggest crews in hip-hop. The internet can't stop debating: who did Durk expose? Who will retaliate? And most importantly, what does this mean for the future of OTF? One thing is certain: the betrayal is real, the secrets are shocking, and the story is far from over. Fans are glued to their screens, waiting for the next revelation. And the world is watching as Lil Durk lays it all bare. The night air in Chicago was thick with tension, the kind that makes even the city's streets feel charged with electricity. Inside a dimly lit studio tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, Lil Durk sat with a mix of anger and resolve etched across his face. This was no ordinary session. This was a moment that had been building for years, a moment where silence was no longer an option. For the first time, Durk was prepared to publicly expose the betrayals and hidden agendas that had been quietly destabilizing OTF, his team. Usually a picture of loyalty and strength had started to show cracks. And now those cracks had grown into gaping holes. Sources close to Durk say that he had been gathering information for months, quietly piecing together evidence that pointed to a network of internal betrayal. People he trusted the most, those who had been riding with him through the highs and lows, were allegedly leaking information to rivals, undermining moves, and quietly orchestrating their own agendas. The betrayal wasn't just minor, it was systemic, weaving itself into the fabric of OTF in a way that threatened to dismantle the entire operation from the inside out. Durk's revelation wasn't just about revenge. It was about survival and reclaiming control as word of the upcoming disclosure began to leak online. Fans and insiders alike started connecting the dots. Social media was alight with speculation. Who within OTF could have possibly turned against their own? How long had this been happening? Some of the whispers suggested that the betrayal went far deeper than anyone anticipated, stretching into business dealings, music collaborations, and even personal relationships within the crew. Every new leak added fuel to the fire, and the tension among the ranks was palpable. Durk, however, remained calm, collected, and meticulous. According to insiders, he planned to confront those involved directly before making the information public. This wasn't just about exposing names, it was about revealing patterns, showing the audience how manipulation had been occurring under the guise of loyalty. Every conversation, every private message, every suspicious move had been cataloged. And now, it was time for the truth to emerge. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere was intense. OTF members were on edge, unsure who might be next in the spotlight. Rumors began circulating about meetings being canceled, texts going unanswered, and alliances shifting overnight. People who once considered themselves untouchable within the crew suddenly felt exposed, as if every action could now be traced back to their complicity in the web of deceit. For the fans, it was the first real glimpse into the inner workings of one of hip-hop's most closely watched crew's side of OTF. No one outside the circle had ever truly seen, as Durk prepared to address the public. He recorded a series of videos and statements meant to clarify the situation. Unlike the typical social media posts or studio leaks, this was deliberate, focused, and controlled. Every word, every pause, every inflection was calculated to send a message. Loyalty matters. Betrayal has consequences, and the truth will no longer be hidden. The internet began buzzing even before the full revelations were released, with clips of Durk's preparation already making rounds on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Fans debated and dissected every frame, trying to anticipate the bombshells that were about to drop. Durk's move has been described by insiders as both strategic and risky. By exposing betrayal within OTF, he risked further alienating allies and creating new enemies. Yet, it also positioned him as a leader who refuses to tolerate deception. A man willing to confront harsh truths to protect what he's built. This was about more than music, or fame, it was about legacy, authority, and respect. Durk was determined to show that betrayal, no matter how deep or unexpected, would not go unchallenged. As the night wore on, the tension outside the studio matched the intensity inside. Fans stayed glued to their feeds. Journalists scrambled to report updates, and the music world waited with bated breath. One thing was certain: Lil Durk was about to expose a side of OTF no one had dared to speak about before. And when he did, the ripples would be felt far beyond Chicago, shaking the foundation of the crew, sending shockwaves through the streets, and making it clear that loyalty in OTF was no longer optional, it was mandatory. The morning after Durk's initial preparations, the streets of Chicago were buzzing with rumors. Word had spread quickly. Something massive was about to drop from OTF, something that could alter the dynamics of the entire crew. Social media feeds were flooded with speculation, theories, and fan-made reaction videos. Clips of Durk moving through his studio, seemingly tense but in control, were circulating online, prompting intense debate. Everyone wanted to know who was behind the whispers, who had broken the trust, and what the consequences would be. The stakes were higher than ever, and Durk knew it. Inside the studio, the atmosphere was electric, but charged with unease. OTF members came and went, each walking a delicate line between loyalty and self-preservation. Durk had made it clear this confrontation would not be vague. Those involved in any betrayal, direct or indirect, would be addressed head-on. Sources close to the situation confirmed that Durk had compiled extensive evidence: screenshots of conversations, recordings of private calls, and detailed accounts of actions that undermined the crew. Every piece of evidence was carefully documented to leave no room for denial. It was a masterclass in strategic exposure. The betrayal had roots that went deeper than anyone outside the crew could have imagined. For years, some members had been feeding information to rival groups, leaking details about music releases, collaborations, and even personal disputes. One source described it as a slow erosion of trust, where small, seemingly insignificant actions added up over time, creating cracks that eventually threatened the entire foundation of OTF. Durk, however, had been watching, taking mental notes, and waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, with the public about to witness the fallout, the timing was crucial. Durk's plan was methodical. Before making any public statements, he held a series of private meetings with key members of the crew. Some were defensive, some apologetic, and some visibly nervous, realizing that their past actions were being scrutinized. Durk, known for his ability to remain composed under pressure, approached each confrontation with precision. He asked pointed questions, referenced specific incidents, and observed reactions closely. It was a tense dance where every word, glance, and gesture carried weight. These meetings were more than confrontations, they were auditions of loyalty, testing who would stand by the crew and who would fall away. Meanwhile, the internet was reaching a fever pitch. Fans speculated endlessly about who could be involved. Influencers and bloggers posted breakdowns of old tracks, interviews, and social media interactions, attempting to uncover clues. Every rumor, whether substantiated or not, added fuel to the fire. This was a moment where speculation and reality blurred, and the hype around OTF's internal drama reached unprecedented levels. The crew's social media accounts were inundated with comments, messages, and memes, all pointing to one undeniable truth. People were paying attention, and the world was watching closely. Durk's approach to handling betrayal was multifaceted. While some expected him to make immediate public accusations, he was deliberate in his timing. First came the evidence gathering and private confrontations, ensuring that any public disclosure would be unassailable. Then came strategic leaks to trusted allies and journalists to prepare the narrative. Durk understood the power of perception. By controlling the flow of information, he ensured that the story wouldn't spiral out of control. Every tweet, clip, and message served to reinforce the idea that OTF was still strong. But that loyalty had consequences. The confrontations themselves revealed shocking truths. Members who were once considered pillars of loyalty were implicated in serious betrayals, ranging from sharing private business details with rivals to manipulating internal disputes for personal gain. The depth and sophistication of the betrayals stunned even some of Durk's closest allies. It became clear that OTF's internal challenges were not just about personal conflicts. They were strategic moves by people attempting to weaken the crew from the inside. Durk's revelations would expose a network of deception, sending shockwaves through the streets, studios, and social feeds. As the day wore on, Durk's team prepared for the public disclosure. Cameras were set up for recording statements, notes were reviewed for accuracy, and security measures were reinforced. This wasn't just about revealing betrayal, it was about protecting the crew, maintaining credibility, and sending a clear message to anyone contemplating disloyalty. The world was about to see a side of OTF that few had ever glimpsed. A crew led by a man who demanded loyalty, confronted betrayal, and refused to let deception undermine what he had built. By nightfall, anticipation had reached a peak. Fans waited, journalists speculated, and insiders wondered how the revelations would unfold. Durk, calm but resolute, understood the responsibility that came with exposing betrayal. He wasn't just airing grievances, he was defining the rules of loyalty, setting boundaries, and reinforcing the values that had sustained OTF through years of success and conflict. When the disclosures were finally made, the impact would be felt across hip-hop, social media, and beyond, marking a turning point in the history of the crew. The morning after the initial confrontations, the atmosphere in Chicago's streets was electric. Rumors about OTF's internal fallout had already spread like wildfire. Hip-hop blogs, fan forums, and social media feeds were flooded with speculation about who had been implicated, what exactly had been revealed, and how Durk's crew would respond. Fans dissected every clip, screenshot, and snippet of conversation, trying to predict the next move. Some were supportive, praising Durk for confronting betrayal head-on, while others questioned whether these revelations would cause more damage than they prevented. One thing was clear: the drama was far from over, and the world was watching with rapt attention. Inside the studio, Durk was already strategizing the next phase. He understood that exposing betrayal wasn't just about calling out the guilty, it was about stabilizing the crew. reasserting authority and sending a clear message to anyone considering disloyalty in the future. Each member implicated in the previous day's revelations had been given a chance to explain, defend themselves, or accept responsibility. Some had crumbled under the pressure, admitting to mistakes that went deeper than anyone outside OTF could imagine. Others tried to deflect blame or downplay their involvement. But Durk's meticulous collection of evidence left no room for doubt. This was more than confrontation. It was a reckoning. The scope of the betrayals became even more apparent as internal discussions continued. Individuals who had been trusted with sensitive information about music releases, business deals, and personal matters were revealed to have shared details with rivals. Some had even gone as far as trying to manipulate younger members, creating divisions within the crew to advance their own agendas. The depth of deceit shocked even Durk's closest allies. In private conversations, he emphasized that loyalty wasn't negotiable, and anyone who compromised the integrity of OTF would face consequences, both public and private. The revelations weren't just a warning, they were a demonstration of the crew's commitment to accountability. Social media played a critical role in amplifying the fallout. Clips from Durk's private meetings, leaked intentionally by trusted insiders, went viral. Fans dissected every expression, gesture, and tone, analyzing who might be implicated and what this meant for the crew's future. Influencers and bloggers speculated endlessly, attempting to connect the dots between past feuds, collaborations, and even old interviews. The level of public engagement was unprecedented, turning what might have been an internal issue into a global discussion about loyalty, trust, and the consequences of betrayal in the hip-hop world. Durk's strategy was multifaceted. He not only confronted betrayal directly, but also carefully curated the narrative for public consumption. Leaks were controlled, messages were calculated, and timing was deliberate. He knew that unchecked speculation could spiral out of control, and by controlling the flow of information, he maintained the upper hand. This wasn't just about managing perception, it was about defining reality. Every public statement, social media post, and interview reinforced the idea that OTF remained strong, united, and uncompromising when it came to loyalty. Meanwhile, tensions within the crew continued to simmer. Some members who had been implicated tried to rally support from others, claiming that the exposure was selective or exaggerated. But Durk's careful documentation, corroborated by multiple sources, left little room for denial. Even the most defiant members began to realize the seriousness of the situation. Loyalty, once tested, had consequences. Durk's methodical approach ensured that the revelations were not about revenge, they were about preserving the integrity of the crew and reaffirming the values that had made OTF a powerhouse in hip-hop. Outside the studio, the streets reacted in real time. Graffiti, stickers, and murals began appearing, referencing the drama, while local radio stations and podcasts ran segments analyzing Durk's actions. Some fans debated whether exposing betrayal publicly was risky, while others celebrated the transparency. The story quickly became a cultural moment, influencing discussions not only about music, but about trust, loyalty, and accountability in wider communities. It wasn't just an OTF issue, it was a statement about consequences in an era where social media amplifies every decision. As the day wore on, the impact of the revelations became more pronounced. Collaborations were delayed, upcoming projects were reconsidered, and rival crews watched closely, trying to gauge OTF's stability. Durk, however, remained focused. Each challenge, each public reaction reinforced the need for decisive leadership. He addressed the crew privately, emphasizing that unity and loyalty were paramount, and that betrayal, once revealed, could never be ignored. His calm, strategic approach contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding them, highlighting why OTF remained a dominant force in the industry despite internal tensions. By nightfall, the crew had regrouped and the initial shockwaves had started to settle. Yet the revelations had left an indelible mark. Trust had been tested, loyalty questioned, and the world had witnessed an unprecedented expose of internal deception. Durk, aware of the public scrutiny, prepared for the next stage, not just managing fallout, but solidifying authority, reinforcing trust, and ensuring that OTF emerged stronger from the turmoil. The night ended with a quiet determination, knowing that the coming days would test the crew in ways nothing else had. The next chapter, as Durk knew, would require even more vigilance. Any misstep could be exploited, any rumor could escalate. But he was ready. With evidence in hand, allies at his side, and a clear strategy for the future, Durk was set to redefine the rules of loyalty, both inside OTF and across the hip-hop world. Betrayal had been exposed, but the crew's resilience and strategic thinking would define the story moving forward. The morning after the major confrontations, the tension inside OTF was almost tangible. Even in their private spaces, crew members could feel the weight of what had been revealed the night before. The betrayals weren't just minor slip-ups, they cut deep, involving personal relationships, financial dealings, and strategic plans that had been carefully guarded for years. Lil Durk understood that this was a defining moment. How the crew handled it now would determine the future of OTF for years to come. Every conversation, every glance, and every decision carried enormous weight. And the repercussions were already rippling far beyond Chicago. Durk began the day by calling an emergency, meeting with his closest allies. The room, usually buzzing with energy and music, felt heavy with anticipation. Durk spoke with a calm, commanding presence that left no room for doubt. He detailed the evidence he had gathered: messages, recordings, and eyewitness accounts. What had once been internal whispers had become documented proof of deception. Some members who had been implicated tried to defend themselves, offering excuses or deflecting blame. Durk, however, was unwavering. He emphasized that loyalty was not optional in OTF and that betrayal, no matter the rationale, would not be tolerated. The meeting set a precedent. The organization would operate transparently, and any attempt to undermine it would be met with decisive consequences. While the internal cleanup was underway, the external response was equally dramatic. Social media erupted with speculation about who had been involved and what had been exposed. Fans analyzed every post, looking for hidden messages or clues. Rival crews monitored the chaos closely, assessing whether this was an opportunity to exploit OTF's momentary instability. Even the mainstream press picked up on the story, reporting on the internal fallout as if it were a major political scandal. The combination of public scrutiny and internal pressure created an atmosphere that left no one in OTF unshaken. Durk knew the situation required not only internal strategy, but also careful management of public perception. As the day progressed, more revelations emerged. Some crew members had attempted to sell information about upcoming music releases and business ventures to competitors. Others had been manipulating younger members, attempting to sway them into making decisions that would benefit the betrayers personally. The extent of the deceit stunned even the most experienced members of the team. Durk, however, saw this as a necessary moment to reaffirm his leadership and the values OTF stood for. He held private sessions with affected members, balancing accountability with guidance, making sure they understood the seriousness of the betrayal, but also offering a path toward redemption for those willing to commit fully to the crew's mission. The financial implications of the betrayal were also becoming clear. Several pending collaborations and deals had been compromised, and some partners were reconsidering their associations with OTF. Durk immediately set out to repair those relationships. personally reaching out to key contacts and assuring them that the integrity of the organization remained intact. The combination of strategic transparency and decisive action helped to mitigate some of the damage. But the crew knew that this crisis was far from over. The message was loud and clear. Loyalty and trust were non-negotiable, and the consequences of deception were severe. Amid the chaos, Durk also focused on rebuilding morale within OTF. He organized sessions that encouraged open dialogue, allowing members to express concerns, vent frustrations, and regain a sense of unity. While some of the discussions were tense, the overall effect was a reinforcement of the crew's solidarity. The idea was simple but powerful. Transparency and accountability would strengthen the organization, and the exposure of betrayal, though painful, was ultimately a necessary step in ensuring OTF's longevity. Outside observers noted that Durk's handling of the crisis was unusually strategic. He didn't react emotionally or lash out publicly. Instead, he used calculated communication to maintain authority and control over the narrative. Every leak, every statement, every social media post was deliberately timed to reinforce his leadership and the crew's resilience. The combination of internal discipline and public narrative control ensured that OTF emerged from this stage of the crisis looking stronger, more unified and unshakable despite the turbulence. By evening, the crew had started to settle into a new rhythm. The initial shock had passed, but the lessons were indelibly marked. Trust had to be earned, loyalty had to be demonstrated consistently, and the consequences of deception were immediate and undeniable. The night ended with Durk reviewing every aspect of the day, ensuring that all members were aligned and that any remaining threats to cohesion were addressed. This stage of the betrayal crisis had been intense, but it had also been transformative. OTF had survived the initial revelations, and the crew's focus on accountability, transparency, and strategic leadership set the stage for the next phase. Durk knew that the streets, the fans, and rival crews were all watching closely, but he was ready. Every challenge, every rumor, every external pressure would be met with the same decisive approach: exposure, accountability, and unwavering loyalty. The story of OTF's betrayal was far from over, but the crew had emerged from this chapter with a renewed sense of purpose and strength. That would define their future. The fallout from the betrayal had reached a tipping point. Lil Durk knew that simply addressing the internal issues wasn't enough. The public narrative had to be controlled as well. Fans, rivals, and the media were all hungry for updates, and the pressure to respond quickly was immense. That's when Durk turned to RapShock, the platform that had consistently broken exclusive stories about OTF and its members. By sharing certain verified insights through RapShock, he could clarify misinformation, assert control over the narrative, and simultaneously send a message to anyone considering betrayal in the future. The article went live with a powerful headline that read, "Lil Durk speaks out. OTF betrayal exposed. Full details inside." Within hours, RapShock's post went viral. Fans across social media platforms dissected every word, analyzing Durk's tone, the crew's strategy, and the details of the betrayal. Comments flooded in, showing support, shock, and curiosity about how the crew would rebuild after such a monumental breach of trust. For many, it was the first time they understood the depth of what had happened inside OTF. The platform's reach meant that the story wasn't just local, it was global. International audiences began weighing in, amplifying the discussion far beyond Chicago. RapShock had become more than just a news outlet. It was now a conduit through which Durk could directly influence perception, shaping the narrative while maintaining control over sensitive information. Meanwhile, inside OTF, the crew had shifted into full operational mode. Durk held a series of high-stakes meetings to address lingering tensions and prevent any further fractures. Each member was evaluated not just on past actions, but on their commitment to rebuilding trust. Those who had faltered were given strict guidelines and monitored closely, while loyal members were empowered to take more prominent roles in decision-making and security. Durk emphasized accountability at every turn, making it clear that OTF's strength was rooted in unity and mutual respect. The betrayal had been a wake-up call, and Durk was determined that it would never happen again. Never happen again. As the internal realignment progressed, Durk also made strategic public appearances, further reinforcing the RapShock narrative. Interviews, social media posts, and behind-the-scenes content were all carefully coordinated to highlight the crew's resilience and the steps being taken to fortify OTF's operations. Each move was deliberate. The message was consistent. OTF had faced betrayal, but it had emerged stronger, smarter, and more united than ever. This multifaceted approach served a dual purpose: strengthening internal morale while signaling to competitors that OTF remained a formidable force despite recent setbacks. Financial and creative recovery became a top priority. Durk personally oversaw negotiations for upcoming collaborations, music releases, and business ventures. He ensured that any partners affected by the betrayal were reassured of OTF's stability and integrity. By taking direct control, he prevented further leaks, mitigated potential financial losses, and restored confidence among collaborators. The combination of internal accountability and external reassurance helped stabilize OTF's trajectory, positioning the crew to reclaim its dominance in both music and street influence. By midweek, the narrative had shifted entirely. Where rumors and speculation once dominated, RapShock's coverage provided a detailed, credible, and controlled account of events. Fans and industry insiders alike recognized Durk's leadership and the crew's resilience. Even rival groups initially poised to exploit OTF's instability recalculated their strategies upon seeing the organization's reinforced unity and renewed operational focus. It became clear that the betrayal, while damaging, had ultimately strengthened OTF, proving that transparency and decisive action were powerful tools in maintaining dominance. Durk capped off the week with a live session for RapShock, where he directly addressed fans and critics alike. He recounted the key moments of the betrayal, explained the steps taken to correct course, and reinforce the values that OTF stood for. Loyalty, accountability, and transparency were no longer just principles. They were the operational foundation of the crew. The interaction was raw, honest, and strategic, leaving viewers with a clear understanding that OTF had weathered the storm and was ready to thrive once again. As the dust settled, the lessons were clear. Betrayal had tested OTF's limits, but through careful planning, decisive leadership, and strategic use of media outlets like RapShock, Durk ensured that the crew not only survived, but emerged stronger. The story of OTF's internal struggle became a blueprint for crisis management, demonstrating how transparency, accountability, and narrative control could turn chaos into opportunity. By leveraging RapShock's reach, Durk had successfully transformed a potentially career-threatening scandal into a reaffirmation of leadership, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond within OTF. The message resonated far and wide. OTF was intact, united, and prepared to dominate the next chapter of its journey. The OTF saga has unfolded before your eyes, revealing betrayals, secrets, and the raw truth behind Lil Durk's inner circle. Now, it's your turn to stay ahead of the story. Don't miss a single update. Subscribe, follow, and turn on notifications so you're always the first to know when RapShock drops the next explosive report. From exclusive interviews to behind-the-scenes insights, every detail matters, and staying informed keeps you connected to the pulse of the hip-hop world. Share your thoughts, join the conversation, and engage with the community that's breaking down every revelation alongside you. Loyalty, transparency, and truth have never been more crucial. Don't get left in the dark. Head over to RapShock, read the full breakdown, and witness the complete journey of OTF's triumphs and trials. This is the story everyone will be talking about. Make sure you're part of it.